All right, guys, we have a little bit of a bombshell story here about what actually allegedly led to the stepping down of Biden not running for re-election anymore. So, by the way, interesting fact, there was other reporting that said, so Obama and Pelosi were working behind the scenes to try to get Biden to step aside, and Biden eventually gave into the pressure. But as one last fuck you to Obama, he released his letter saying, you know, I'm stepping aside, etc. But he didn't mention Kamala in the first letter he released. Then Team Biden went right to Twitter and endorsed Kamala after that. And the reporting said the reason Biden did that is because he knew Obama didn't want Kamala. And Obama wanted somebody else. And so this was his way of right out the door being like, all right, you're going to force me out? Well, fuck you. Then it's going to be Kamala. Right now, again, I don't know if that's true, but there's some reporting indicating that that's exactly what happened. And it took the Obamas a little while to end up endorsing Kamala. It took Pelosi a little while to end up endorsing Kamala because their preference was not Kamala. But obviously when the tide became overwhelming, they relented, right? But anyway, that's one piece of reporting. But this honestly is even more interesting. So look at this. Latest Seymour Hersh piece claims that Biden had a major medical event that was covered up as COVID, and that if he resisted stepping down, they were going to invoke the 25th Amendment. All right, let's read this. Who in Washington didn't know that Biden was failing? We all did up to a point. I had learned months earlier from a federal official that those in the front rows of university events where Biden was speaking were warned not to move if the president tripped while walking to the podium. Secret Service agents were on hand to pick him up immediately. There would be no front page photos of a college valedictorian helping the president climb to his feet. On Monday, July 15th, Biden took off on Air Force One on a campaign trip to Nevada, a toss-up state that Biden won in 2020 by a little more than 30,000 votes. On Tuesday, he gave the keynote address to 5,000 members of the NAACP at its annual convention. The next day, the president, apparently stricken while campaigning with a yet-to-be-revealed illness, broke from his schedule and made a police escort race to Air Force One after initially telling police they were heading to the nearest emergency room. A series of blog posts, local police reports, internet messages, and report in the Daily Mail disclose further details of Biden's trip to Las Vegas and his abrupt return home to Delaware. I went over these reports this week with a senior official in Washington who helped me fashion an account of a White House in complete disarray, culminating in the president's withdrawal from the race. It's a story not unlike 7 Days in May, the Cold War thriller in which a colonel, played by Kirk Douglas, foils a coup staged by a general, played by Burt Lancaster. None of what you read below comes from an official account by the White House. All right, he continues. At that point, according to Emily Gooden, a Daily Mail reporter who was in the traveling press pool, the president was deathly pale on Air Force One, flew at maximum speed to Delaware, where the president has a weekend retreat at Rehoboth Beach. The press pool was told that Biden had COVID. Nothing more was said on Air Force One. After Biden's return to Delaware, the White House told the public that Biden had contracted a COVID infection and would be in isolation. He was said to have upper respiratory symptoms, a runny nose, a cough, and was fatigued. That was the last straw for a core group of congressional leaders, government officials, and some senior Biden funders who were withholding huge amounts of committed contributions. There was pressure on donors to come across on their pending commitments, the official told me. It was understood that Biden had a physical problem in Las Vegas, and the family was saying no to continued pressure from Democratic donors and senior Democrats in Congress to withdraw from the presidential campaign. Initially, the president could not be reached. By Saturday, July 20th, former President Barack Obama was deeply involved, and there was talk that he would place a call to Biden. It was not clear whether Biden had been examined or just what happened to him in Las Vegas. The big three, the official said, referring to former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Hakeem Jeffries, continued to be directly involved. On Sunday morning, the official told me, with the approval of Pelosi and Schumer, Obama called Biden after breakfast and said, "Here's the deal. We have Kamala's approval to invoke the 25th Amendment. The amendment provides that when the president is determined by the vice president and others to be unfit to carry out the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall assume those duties." So in other words, according to Seymour Hersh, the Democrats were finally fed up with this last issue, which was, okay, now he has COVID. He's been struggling, can't complete a sentence, making an ass of himself, plummeting in the polls, donors are withholding money, all these problems. And then he gets COVID and, you know, he can't go out there and do his thing in campaign, has no ability to like sort of turn the race around. According to Seymour Hersh, this was the final straw, and this led to the top Democratic officials, the top elites, basically launching into action. And according to him, Obama calls Biden and says, if you don't step aside, we're going to invoke the 25th Amendment, and you're going to be put aside forcefully. And then that led Biden to finally give up and say, okay, I'll announce I'm not running for re-election, but I will stay the rest of the term, my term in office. But, you know, I'll step aside. This is Seymour Hersh's reporting. Now, look, am I totally sold on it? To be honest, no, I'm not. Because there's some very straightforward, kind of obvious issues with it. For one thing, these guys are the Democrats all put on a united front publicly. And in many ways, it seems like they act like lemmings and sheep. And they were trying to do this as gently as possible, even when they were in the full throes of it, right? And to invoke the 25th Amendment against Biden, that leads to massive, massive press coverage, all this negative attention on the Democrats. And frankly, they're scared of that. They're scared of the negative attention. They're scared of doing anything that they think could help Trump, right? And invoking the 25th Amendment truly is a massive, massive nuclear option, right? In fact, that would be more contentious than just taking Biden on at the convention, trying to plan, like, okay, talk to the delegates, sort of plan an organized effort to not certify him and then get a process to get somebody else. That would be less contentious than this. 25th Amendment is not only are you not running for re-election, bitch, we're saying you can't even do the job the rest of the time as president. You got to step down now, skis. That's what 25th Amendment is. So do they have the ruthlessness and the balls to undercut their own party leader at the moment, thereby hurting the party more in their eyes, from their perspective? Like, they know this will hurt us more. I don't think they have the balls to do that. Now, having said that, is it possible his reporting is right? It's very possible. It's possible. But I guess I would like to see more names, more sources on the record, and like other verification and validation from other people who can say, yes, this is indeed what happened. Because to have one reporter with like one source and it's unnamed, it just seems a little far-fetched, right? Now, assuming for argument's sake here for just a second that what he's saying is true, goddamn, this is ruthless, bro. This is ruthless. This is ruthless, is what this is. So, and I'm curious what you guys think about his point about, they said it was COVID, but it actually wasn't. It was a different major medical event. Because now looking at it in retrospect, he made a phone call 3 days later. Then 2-3 days after that, he went to Air Force One, right? And he still looks like, it looks like it was probably COVID. It looks like he had COVID, he kicked it, and now he's here. The idea that it was like a heart attack or a stroke or something like that, I think at this moment he would still be in way worse shape than he is. Now, don't get me wrong, his brain still isn't functioning, but it hasn't been functioning for a long time. I'm saying he's no worse now than he was 3 months ago, right? It's the same guy. And so it leads me to believe it probably was COVID, but according to him, it wasn't, and they're sort of like hiding something else from the press. And that's sort of what led to Obama to take action. Yeah, I just don't know if they're that ruthless. I don't know if they're that ruthless. But I will say, the thing that lends it some semblance of credibility is just how over the top Biden was in his denunciations of the idea that he steps aside. I mean, he was out there all the time. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. I'm gonna beat Trump. And he like never showed any sign of, okay, maybe I'm open to the conversation. I guess there were some brief moments where he said somewhat conciliatory things when he was like, yeah, it was only God could take me out of the race. It went from that to, well, there's some sort of medical thing, I guess. I'll step aside. So he softened maybe a touch, but still the overwhelming sensation we got was like, he ain't going fucking anywhere, bro. He's going nowhere. So I don't know. This is the reporting. I'm still a little skeptical. I'm curious what you guys think, because I think a cleaner way, there are cleaner ways to get him to do it, right? There are cleaner ways to get him to do it. And I think what's more likely, if they were going to go a similar path to this, is not to threaten the 25th Amendment, but is for every single Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Obama, and Hillary and Bill while we're at it, right? Throw them in there too. But for them to go out there and say, look, it's not just 30, 40, 50 Democrats. 95% of the caucus is against you. And the thing is, it was a drip, drip, drip coming out, right? Every day it was, okay, now Sherrod Brown's against it. Now John Tester, now this person, now that person. And what could have been threatened was, this is not stopping. Every day there will be 5 to 10 more new big-name Democrats coming out against you. At some point, you're going to have 95% of your own party against you. We're going to have zero donor money to run up against Trump. Your polls are so far gone, there's no coming back. Because that's the mainstream reporting is Biden actually was told by his closest advisors, people he trusts, look, we looked at the numbers. There's no way you could win this race, right? That's like the mainstream reporting says that he was told there's literally no way you could win this race. Look at these numbers. Now we're losing. They said one of the things that actually swayed him was, you look at places like New Mexico, places we should easily win, places like New Jersey. There's some polls now where you're getting beat there, bro. Like, you're not making a comeback. So I think that's more likely. What's more likely is his closest advisors actually tell him there's no way you could win this race. And then Pelosi, Obama get to him and say, look, it's going to be 5, 10 new people every single day coming out saying you got to step aside. What are you going to do when we have no more donor money left? And what are you going to do when everybody in the party is against you? Mix that with your polls. You don't really have a choice. Like, you have to step aside. So the question is, how do you get through to him that fact where he absorbs it? And I think that's a better way and less nuclear way than we're going to kick your ass out of office using the 25th Amendment. And so you got to step aside, because if you don't, we're going 25th Amendment on your ass. I don't know if they have the ruthlessness to do that or the balls to do that. And I think that other argument fundamentally is good enough and not as much of a fuck you to Biden. So I don't know. I'll leave it up to you guys. What do you think finally led to him stepping aside? But this is certainly some spicy reporting from Seymour Hersh. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.